Doesn't look like anybody's on yet, so we'll give it a couple of minutes, see if we can't get anybody on. Okay, we got one. All right, come on, guys. Hey, good evening. This is Tara at Tara Beth Stamps. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator here in mid-Missouri. And I am not going to do a card today. We're going to do something a little different. We are going to make a Kraft gift box. So the reason that I'm doing this is because right now we've got 9 days of celebration. Hey, Angie, thanks for joining me. We've got 9 days left, and Stampin' Up added a couple of really awesome, hey Mary, thanks for joining, a couple of really awesome things to the celebration. I love the timber foil embossing folder. It is my go-to. Flowers of Home, I'm going to do a blog post as well as a reel on Instagram using that later on this week. I've used the silver foil on one of my cards this week. I've got a dot and spot die I'm trying to use as much of it with these on my reels and in my blog, just so you can kind of get an idea of what you can do with these items, because these are some really, really great specials. So don't forget, you can get most of these with a $50 or $100 purchase. If you use my host code this month that you can find on my blog, you'll also get a free pack of brushed brass butterflies. So those are super awesome. But right now, tonight, we're going to focus on the Kraft gift box. So this is the way it comes. It comes in a package of 10. So you get 10 of these, which is pretty awesome. Hey, Shirley, thanks for joining. So you get 10 of them. They're super easy to use, and I had a lot of fun making this project. So this is how it comes when you take it out of the package. And we're going to fold this later once we get, I did something for the center. So this is great for a gift for anyone. You can put food in it. You can put, you know, those little coffee things. You can put anything. Let's look here. I know I have a ruler here somewhere. Here it is. So anything that you can fit in 3/4 inch. So, it's pretty flat. Hey, Susan, thanks for joining. So, but they're fun. So we're going to get started. As I said, we're going to do the Perched on a Tree set, which I really enjoyed making something. And I'm going to use a lot of those techniques again that I showed you a couple of weeks ago. But I think it's because I've seen some of these online. And yes, chocolate would be perfect. Hey, Amy, thanks for joining. I've seen a lot of these birds colored with blends, and they're really beautiful with blends, but I think watercoloring is the only way to go with these birds. I'm not a huge bird fan, but with this one, I fell in love. And I left my watercolor paper over on my desk. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take up some Stays-On ink, and I am going to grab that bird off that Perched in a Tree set. And I'm just going to ink it up. And remember, with the Stays-On ink, you want to leave this card here so that it doesn't dry up. So I usually just put it right back in the lid before I'm using it. And I'm going to ink that up real well. And give it a really good press. So that's a pretty good image that I think we'll be ready to use some watercolors on. So Stampin' Up has watercolor brushes, and amazingly enough, I'm new at using this. I did not realize they were all 3 different. I thought there was 2 of the same and one was different. So you've got your large flat brush that we're going to actually use today. Then you have your smaller, easier, more defined, and then you have the larger one. So I'm going to pull out some, we'll do early espresso, and we'll do pumpkin pie. And so the reason that I'm choosing darker colors is because when you're watercoloring, those colors are quite a bit lighter. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can squeeze your cartridge and pop it open and you get a nice ink there. The other thing that I've been known to do is just run my block right across it and then leave the ink on here. That way the water's not getting in your ink pad. But tonight we're just gonna do right on the ink pad. So I'm gonna squeeze a little water in there and I'm gonna try to lighten it up. Okay. I'm gonna bring out a paper towel here and just start coloring. And the great thing about the watercolors is you don't have to be precise. And blending works out beautifully. So you'll notice I'm putting a little bit of that on my paper towel, and I'm not really following the lines. I'm kind of pulling out some of that color, the lighter color, to make it more blending. Hey Vicki, thanks for joining. And then I'm going to do the same thing with some early espresso. I'm going to clean my brush off a little bit, just kind of squeezing some water out, making sure that I'm not blending my colors. So I finally got it clean. And I'm going to start at the bottom and we're going to meet in the middle. And you'll see I am running right back over areas that have already been done. Okay. The reason I'm doing this first is because I'm going to let it dry before we die cut it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of darker in some of those areas where there's leaves, or not leaves, but wings. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of that early espresso super lightly over the orange so it's not so, yikes, that's orange. And I got these colors off the internet. That's a lot of things that I do, is when I'm not familiar with a bird or a specific flower, I look it up on the internet to kind of see what's true colors that they use. Okay, I like that bird. I'm going to go ahead and close these up, get them out of the way, because I'm almost done with them. And I'm going to go ahead and clean off my brush. Get it out of the way. We're going to set this over here to dry a little bit. The next thing I'm going to do is do a little more watercoloring. I should have left these out here. I am going to actually pull a little crushed curry out here as well. Heidi, thank you. It just takes time. So what I have is I have another piece of watercolor paper, and I actually brought in a little bit of water because I found with the wide guy, I'm a little impatient. So I'm going to add just a good thick coating of water. With watercoloring, you have to be careful. There's a fine line between too much water and not enough water. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of the crushed curry, and I'm just going to kind of smoosh it and wave it around. And what we're going to do with this piece is we're going to cut out leaves. And the reason that I'm doing it on the watercolor is because here in Missouri, our leaves are not just yellow. They're not just orange. They're usually a beautiful variety of color. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the pumpkin pie. Just kind of a little bit everywhere. Now, normally, I'm going to clean out my brush there because that was a lot of orange. That's the other reason I like this guy there. Thanks, Mary. I'm glad you like that bird. All right, so I'm using Early Espresso, and the reason I'm using that instead of soft suede is because soft suede has a lot of green undertones. So when you use it, it's mostly green, and I wanted brown. There's green definitely in the Early Espresso, but it's not quite as defined. Okay. So we're gonna set this to the side to dry. Let me clean off that brush. And I think we're done with the watercoloring. So, and sometimes you can lift it up and turn it and let those colors just kind of mingle together. Okay. All right, next what we're gonna do is we are going to take a piece of Very Vanilla. Did I bring all my inks and no paper? Well, let's go ahead and stamp this while I look around. Apparently I've lost it. All right, so on the sentiment, I have half, I'm gonna use half, a little more than half, of one of the stylish shaped arrows. Give that a good go. Give me 1 second. When all else fails, you start from scratch. I know I had paper cut. Okay, so I think I did 3 7/8 by 4 1/2 on the Very Vanilla. So this is gonna be the back. We're gonna do a little color blending with some blues. So I picked out 3 blues. I've got Balmy Blue, Pacific Point, and Night of Navy. And what I do is I start with the lightest first, and I'm using my Stampin' Up blending brush. I'm gonna get a really good amount of ink on here. And the nice thing about the blues is they blend beautifully. Right, so we'll call that good with the Balmy Blue. I'm going to do a little bit of the Pacific, and you'll notice me tapping that off because I don't want it to be super bright, but I do want a little variegation. Okay, and then the Night of Navy, we're going to do around the edges. And you'll see when I'm blending that, I start off of the mat and go around. Since they've released these blending brushes, I seem to be using and re-inking my pads a lot more because I seem to blend so much. Okay, now I'm going to set these inks out of the way because I think I am finally done with those. I'm going to grab a piece of soft suede. And we're going to pull out my stamp, my cut and emboss. So I'm using plates 1, 2, and 2 of the 3s. And I am going to cut the trees. So I'm going to bring this up to the top. And add, ooh, that's going to hit that. Hey, Rosie Rub-a-Dub, you're late. Better late than never, right? Okay, so when you lift that die, what you're going to get is you're going to get an oblong kind of oval and lots of baby pieces that you're going to weed out. If you can't get some of them out, one of the great tools that I use all the time is my Take Your Pick tool. It's perfect for poking those little guys out. I'll set that out of the way. I'm going to cut this right across the bottom here. And so this is going to go in our window. So what I'm going to do is, you can see, I didn't cut my very vanilla, but that's okay because most of this is going to be covered up. So what I'm going to do, before I do that, let's do a little more blending and add a little more texture because that's what I like. So I'm going to take some early espresso and just kind of give these trees just a little more definition. Variegation, it's always good. There's lots of embossing on this die cut if you don't have it. Remember, free with that $100 purchase. That's pretty awesome. And this is one of those sets, I'll be honest, I wasn't super thrilled with when I saw the catalog. Wasn't super thrilled when I saw some of the cards. But I ordered it. I had an option to get it. And I fell in love with it the first time I used it. It's one of those surprises to me. Okay. So it's subtle, the ink blending. Okay. Now we're going to flip it over and add some liquid adhesive, just kind of randomly along the trees. And then along this side here. Free, I love free stuff. I'm getting my last celebration order in next week. I'm trying to decide what I just absolutely have to have. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in, see, it covers it right up where that hole was. I'm going to bring in my Kraft gift box. And I'm going to show you what I did with it. Before I did anything, I just burnished all of the edges super well. So I'm going to fold that there. going to come back here and I'm going to fold this here. And honestly, I didn't think about it. You could put more stuff on the back if you wanted to, like a thank you note or something like that. But these are perfect for thank you gifts to provide anybody, you know, your neighbors, your coworkers, those moms that are helping you out. Because let's face it, none of us do it by ourselves. If you do, you're a way better person than I am. Okay. So as you'll see when I'm folding this side, you see these great 3M tags. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to fold the insides in here. I'm going to remove one of those tags and pull it up so that it meets. And I'm going to squeeze it together. And I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. Lift that tag. And I'm going to bring that take your pick tool in and try to get some of this tape because it is stuck. Ooh. There we go. I'm going to fold that in. Once I get it where I want it, I'm going to squeeze it a little bit. You know, Rosie, you're right. I need to do that this week myself. My mama would not be a happy camper with me, let me tell you. Okay. Now I'm going to take that .3M tag and I'm going to fold it over to where it meets, naturally meets, and I'm going to give it a squeeze. And the other awesome thing about these is these are free with just that $50 purchase. So it may be one of those things that you were looking to get and decided not to. And now's the time to get it because nothing's better than free, like Mary said. Okay, we're going to fold this one in. Ooh, I don't think I burnished this one. Here we go. We'll give it a fold. Find where it naturally meets and give it a squeeze. And then we're going to do that. So here is your box. This is what it looks like, and it folds right in. There we go. Really beautifully. So the box by itself is really beautiful. You could put some just a little sentiment with some beautiful ribbon. But this one I wanted to dress up just a little bit more. So, oh, I stuck that guy on the wrong side. We'll fix that in a minute. So I'm going to fold this back. And I'm going to add just a little bit of liquid adhesive, or a lot of liquid adhesive, right there on that acetate that's already there. And I'm going to set it down. I'm going to flip it over and see where I'm at. And I like where that's at. I like that positioning. Okay. I'm going to shut this up. And we'll do the front. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a little bit of tear and tape. And I'm going to add it just kind of in the center where I know all of this stuff is going. Now I'm going to take some gold ribbon or gold twine from the Simply Elegant collection, and I'm just kind of looping it around however it kind of lands. And that's why I'm using that tear tape. Oopsie, now that's a little too loopy there on the bottom. But I want to make sure that it's big enough that I'll be able to see it once we get it done. All right, let's take that off and let's move on to the branch. So the branch I stamped from the Perched in a Tree set and die cut it with the same die cuts that we're getting for free. Don't forget. I feel like it's a little long, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut off the end of it. There we go. Now I will take some Stampin' Dimensionals. Which are right down here at the bottom of everything. I've got some black ones here and they'll work out. So there's one, and there's a half of one. Okay, I'm gonna pull this up. And, ooh, that dimensional is a little bigger than I thought it was. There we go. And we'll set it right there along that tree line. Okay, now we need to die cut our bird. Hopefully it's dry. Oh yeah, it's dry. So I'm gonna take my stamp set, or my die set, which fell. All right, and I'm gonna bring him out, and I think I'll use my mini cut and emboss because that's a little easier to use on camera. So the nice thing about this guy is it's small and it can be taken anywhere. I'm gonna line that bird right up with that die. And if you don't have a die cut machine, this is a perfect guy to get because the mini will lose its plate. Oh my God. Anything that will go wrong today can go wrong. All right, now we're gonna bring out the big one because we know where those plates are. Gotta clean off all the debris from the last die cut. All right, here we go. Now we are set. I'm gonna set that in, give that a whirl, and we'll have our bird. So you can see right there. Now we're really done with that, I think. Because I did go ahead and cut out some of the leaves by themselves. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of this bird. And now we've got white dimensionals, because that's what I'm seeing. Okay, I'm only going to use 2 because we're going to stick leaves behind there. And I kind of stick towards doing it in the center because I'm going to be sticking things elsewhere, and I want to make sure that there we go. Now, let's add the sentiment, and we can use those So I've covered up most of the limb, but it makes me feel better to know that it's there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Stampin' Dimensional and a little bit of liquid adhesive. Because we're going to stick it kind of right on the branch. There we go. Lastly, I have some of those leaves that I cut out with the dies from the watercolor paper that we made earlier. Some of these I did go ahead and do some distress or ink blending after it was dry with some early espresso. And I'm going to take one of these and feed it right under there. Give it a little hold. I'm going to take a Stampin' Dimensional and put that on there, as well as a little liquid adhesive, because when you're doing something like this, adhesive is key. We're going to lift that up a little bit and put it so that you can see the die cut is not cut right here. Let's feed it in just a scotch more. There we go. Let's see here. I think I'm going to put one right there. We'll do a little bit of liquid adhesive and we'll add another Stampin' Dimensional. So this is not a card. This is definitely a 3-day project, but it's perfect for giving anybody any little gifts, any candy, anything. I hope you like today's project. Thanks so much for bearing with me. I know I have stuff cut. I'm sure I'll find it once I'm cleaned up. Thanks for joining me. All the directions are going to be on my blog, as well as the dimensions and a little bit about coloring that cardstock or that watercolor paper. I will be back next Sunday. Yes, it's the Sunday after that's Labor Day, so I won't be here on Labor Day. Thanks so much for joining me on Sunday night, and I will see you next week. Thanks.